welcome to How to Play Skull. Skull, you're sitting down, you've got the cards in front of you. It's probably one of the best bluffing games ever made. Be excited, but first of all I'm going to teach you how to play it, because you need that. Otherwise it's just going to be like holding bits of cardboard. So how do you play? Well, it's simple. I would look at these cards in secret and I would choose to put one of them down on my little scorecard in front of me. Then the player to the left would do that, and it goes round in a circle. And when it reaches me again, here's where it gets interesting. As soon as it gets round to your turn again, you can either put down another disc on the pile and continue to raise that up as it goes round and round and round, or as soon as everyone has just one disc on the table, it means what you can do is you can call a number and you can say, I think I can turn over 3 of these discs without hitting a skull. 3 that are just roses. So I might give that a go now and go, okay, rose, skull. Messed it up. What happens when you hit a skull? Well, you basically have to fan out your cards, mix them up. Let's be secretive about this, come on. And then I would hold them out to the player whose skull I hit. They, at random, would take one of them out, put it in the middle of the table, and I've now lost that card. What does that mean for me? Well, that depends. In this circumstance, I still have my skull, which means I can still bite people when they come nipping at my pile of cards. However, if you lose your skull, you can't do that. And then the game for you is all about trying to pretend you still have a skull, when actually all you've got is 3 roses. Or if you do manage to call a number and then flip out that number of roses without hitting a skull, then you just got a point. You do that twice, you've won the game. And that's skull. But it isn't as simple as just calling out a number and then going, whoop, I'm going to flip over them. Yeah, 1, 2. No, wait. Somebody else can bid higher than you. There are 4 cards on the table here, which means 3 is pretty audacious, but somebody might bid 4, which means you kind of wait. And if anyone says 4, then they do 4. If nobody wants to do anything else, then you've got it with 3. Try your luck. There's 2 ways you can try the bidding in this. In the rules, it tells you to go around the table clockwise and say 2. Pass, 3, and then comes around, etc., until everybody passes apart from one player. That's fine, but personally I think after you've played a couple of rounds of Skull, it's way more fun with open bidding. And it means you can sit there looking at it and thinking, oh, there's stacks here, there's stacks there, there's stacks there, and you can think, I can do 4. And then you have to wait like a hawk and wait until somebody else says 3, and then just jump in with 4 before somebody else does. And then maybe you want to go 5, but maybe you don't. It means it becomes a bit more dynamic. It means there's less of sitting and waiting for your turn and more constantly being switched on when the game's going on. Makes it a little bit spicier. Here's an important thing. The first cards you flip over in Skull must be your own. So in this case, 2 roses, which means I've won. Brilliant. I get a point, and then if I get another point, I've won the game. They shouldn't have let me do that. However, if I called 3 or even 4, I would still have to start by flipping all of the cards in front of me before I move on to other stacks. But that's the only time when you need to flip over an entire stack. If you say 4, for example, and then let's say the Eagles and the Panthers over here have both put down 2 as well, then I'd say flip over my 2, and then I could choose to flip maybe both of these for 4, or one of these and one of these. The only exception is you need to flip the ones on the top first. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to dig that one out from the bottom because I don't think that one was a skull. After all this chaos is over and somebody's either won a point by getting the correct number of roses or lost one of their cards by hitting someone's skull and usually being grinned at in quite a smarmy manner, it's time to start a new round. And you do that quite simply by either, if somebody hit a skull, then it's the person whose skull got hit that starts next. If somebody won a point, it's the person who won the point that starts next. The final rule you need to know is that if you hit your own skull, and why would that happen? I'll get to that in a second. But if you hit your own skull, then you get to choose which of your cards you lose. But why would you hit your own skull? Well, I'll give you a little tip about this game. Often you might want to pretend by making a low bid that your stack is safe, then somebody else goes to hit it and oh my god, there's a skull right on top. You're an evil man / woman. Alternatively, you might just have to bid higher, because if you don't, then somebody who's already got a point is going to get another point and win. And finally, a little tip from me to you when you're playing. If you do get unlucky and lose your skull very early in the game, make sure that when you pick up your cards to choose one, next round, you try and get into the habit of actually looking at the cards, because when people just start like doing this, it makes it very obvious you haven't got a skull. But I mean, that's the game. And it's a good good game. Skull is fantastic. It's so simple. You can play it whilst very drunk. You can explain how to play it whilst very drunk. There are very few games in that category, and even more so than that, whilst you can buy the game and it's a beautiful little box and nice little cards. If you're bored in the middle of nowhere in a pub, you can just ask very kindly for some beer mats, get a pen, and make your own. It's one of the best games I've ever played. Enjoy.